to take a canoe from a chief or anyone in the tribe, which was their main means of transportation, and lying about it and dishonoring the whole relationship, them saving you and so forth, is unspeakable.
In 1803, Jefferson was surprised to have completed the Louisiana Purchase, which was a huge change for America. It doubled the size of the American holdings. The United States was taken by surprise by the willingness of the French to make this land available. And so Lewis and Clark were assigned with the task of documenting what was in this huge new holding. Basically everything that was drained by the Missouri River, which was all the way to the Rockies. The mission included several things. One, to find a route to the Pacific Ocean for trade. At the time, beaver hunting was an incredibly lucrative and demanding profession. The idea was to find a route to the West Coast to get beaver hides to China and to Asia is a very profitable business. The second thing was to map out our borders with Canada, to firmly establish where those were. There were treaties that had disagreements regarding those. The third was to document the plants, animals, and people that lived in the area.
For many of the indigenous people across the country, Lewis and Clark expedition marks a time when their lives as they knew them would change, and in the decades to follow Lewis and Clark, things did not go so well for many of the indigenous people across the country.
The American Rivers, which was started in about 1972 with the Clean Water Act, was trying to find some member of the Clark family to do a reenactment of the Lewis and Clark expedition. And they asked Lotsie, Carlota, Clark, if she would like to serve on the board. She agreed to serve on the board of American Rivers, which was a 10-year commitment, and she agreed she wanted to get off the board after 4 or 5 years because that was her commitment. So we were out in the Columbia River area, and we were there for a board meeting of American Rivers, Columbia River, and we met a very interesting gentleman named Roger Wundlick. And Roger took us, Lotsie and I, on a little expedition around the Columbia River at that point in time, so I got connected to the Chinook country. Later on, when I became a board member, and I was asked by the chairman at the time, Rick, what's your attitude about, what do you think of American Rivers? And I said, well, I think it's a great organization, but my observation is rivers were the highways for Native American people. I don't see anybody from the Native American culture that's serving on the board, and I'm kind of curious about that. At that point, the chairman said, well, that's a good idea. That's something that's important. Find us somebody that you feel would make a good board member from the Native American community anywhere in the United States. At the reenactment, when it came into down at the Arch, as they returned, we were standing there, and out jumped Roger. He was on that crew that came in at the Arch, and I grabbed him and I said, Roger, I've been looking for a Native American to serve on American Rivers board for 3 or 4 years, and I haven't found him. He said, I got your man. His name is Ray Gardner, and I will get you connected to Ray.
I met Ray Gardner, who was the then chief of the Chinook tribe, or tribal elder, as they say, in a canoe on the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., as we were both serving on the board of American Rivers. And in our discussions, we figured out we were each 7th generation of this expedition. And he said, did you know that your great-great-great-great stole my great-great-great, who was then the tribal chief's canoe? I was not aware of that, and at that point we decided that we should right a wrong.
They said, well, what could we do? And Ray Gardner said, repatriation has to be done to a seventh generation of the aggrieved by the seventh generation of the one that is going to make things right. And so Lotsie was a seventh generation direct descendant of William Clark, and Ray Gardner was a direct descendant of the Chinook chief whose canoe was stolen.
And then she got on the phone that next day and called up Ray and said, Clark family wants to replace that canoe. We just need to know what kind and how big. So that was a wonderful, wonderful words for us. We're hearing about this, and so we had to decide what kind we wanted. A cedar log. We wanted a big canoe, and the cedar logs are hard to come by to make those big canoes. Trees that are worthy of making canoes.
We thought that the canoe should be regifted because it was stolen. President Jefferson said, don't injure the Indians in any way. They didn't know where they were going. They chartered the first course in that direction, and when they were trying to return home, they didn't have a way home. And we felt that since the Clatsop Chinook tribe saved their lives, they were literally hungry, tired, they were frozen, and they were spending the winter, of course, without heat or anything in the snow. And the nation helped them, and they turned around and took the canoe, which was wrong. They were in survival mode. They'd been 1.5 years in the wilderness, hunting buffalo, meeting with all the tribes along the way. They should not have stolen the canoe, but they were into survival and they had to get home. And so we decided we should right a wrong. So we went west to Washington with the canoe in tow and our grandchildren and our 2 sons, Rick and Rob. And we went to the coast where they landed and first saw the Pacific Ocean. And we have a picture in this book that we have made that is going to publication right now of our grandchildren with the statue of their great-great-great-great, their 9th generation, on the beach where they first saw the ocean, when they said, "Ocean in sight, oh joy."
That day, like I said, a lot of excitement coming, and then when we first saw Klmin come out there, just a wonderful canoe. The Clark family and friends packed it out there into the middle of the circle, and then the work begun. We had elders there that were witnesses, because we always, when we have ceremonies like that, we have witnesses to witness the work that's going on, so that they could say it was all good, and that they could spread the word with others about what they've seen that day. So the ceremony begun, and there was work to be done. We had to cleanse the canoe.
I remember it was like a classic Pacific Northwest Washington day. The sky was cloudy, it was misty, and I remember how big the canoe was. It was sitting on a trailer, and we hauled the canoe out into the center of the fire ring.
A wonderful event was planned at the mouth of the Columbia, and once again, we were blessed to take part in the blessing of the new canoe that was being gifted to the Chinook. Okay. We went through the same formalities as when they blessed our canoe, although the one gifted to them was much, much larger and made by the Chinook and was representative of what Lewis and Clark liberated back in 1806. Okay.
And they had a very special smoked salmon ceremony for us, and we feasted on that, and we exchanged gifts of blankets, of beaded salmon sheaths with knives in them.
I was very little, so I didn't really realize the significance at the time, but I know the energy, it kind of was a celebration. I remember playing with the little kids, and I didn't really know anyone or any of these people, and I'd never met them before, and we all played with these rocks and made this tower, and everyone loved it, and I didn't really understand why, but I think it was a symbol as the next generation.
They expressed their gratitude that finally something has been done a right has been made to right a wrong. And the tears would flow from their eyes and mine too. And I'm not a person who ordinarily is given to such expression with tearing, and but that's what happened, and it was a ceremony that I'm delighted. It was one of my life experiences, and I will never forget it. And I don't think that the people who were from the Chinook Nation will forget it either.
So it became the day, you know, that we've traveled on canoe journeys in the past, and often we would go join up with a tribe up in the Sound or something, but we hadn't gone out in the ocean. You know, we hadn't had a canoe out in the ocean probably for well over 100 years. And it became time, you know, and I remember that morning going out of the Willapa Bay, the place of my third great grandmother, going out of that Willapa Bay and hooking a right. And 4 days later, we end up in Nia Bay up on the point, you know, our very first trip out in the ocean. So 4 days out in the ocean, you know, but along the way we would stop, you know, and visit other tribes. You know, the first tribe we visited was Quinault, you know, and the protocols are is that you come in and you tell them you're tired, you're hungry, you traveled a long ways, and they tell you to come ashore. And when you come ashore, you know, they make sure they feed you, get you showers and a place to sleep, and then you pick up your canoe the next day and those people, and you proceed to the next tribe.
That's what the whole returning of the canoe was about. It was about making that right.
I hope that the future holds a brighter future for the Chinook in terms of their recognition. In 2021, I think it was, their recognition which they had received was revoked after a year and a half. I don't understand all the ramifications of that. I consider it a grave injustice because we know with absolute certainty that they had been there. They've been there for 4,000 years. So I would encourage everyone that has an opportunity to view this to consider contacting your representative and expressing your concern that they reconsider the recognition of the Lower Chinook tribe.